Welcome back to the French Cooking Academy channel. My name is Stefan and today it is technical day. Now if you're new to the channel or if you forgot, we're now rotating every month with different videos, and we start the month with a starter, we follow on with a main, then a side or a dessert. Last week we've done the sauté potatoes, and we usually finish off with a technical video doing an explanation on a technique, a knife cut, a cooking method. But today we're going to be talking about emulsified sauces. What is an emulsification? What are the classification? A very broad overview of all that with two demonstrations: how to make first a mayonnaise without mustard, and then how to make something that is amazingly versatile, which is called the garlic mousse. Let's get started. The first thing we need to know about emulsified sauces is that they fall under two main categories. The first category is called the cold emulsified sauces, and that includes everything that is a dressing, a mayonnaise or mayonnaise-based derivative, plus the preparation based on garlic, such as the aioli or the garlic mousse that we're going to see in this episode. That is the first category. The second category is called the warm emulsified sauces, and these are the beurre blanc and the famous hollandaise sauce that everybody makes, the béarnaise, and all the derivatives. These are sauces you make on the stove. Now we're not going to spend any more time talking about those because they can get a little bit complex, and this is the first episode, so we're going to concentrate on the cold emulsified sauces with some demonstration. Now, before we can make an emulsified sauce, you of course need to understand what is an emulsion, what is the process of emulsification, and for that matter, there's one thing we can do is a quick demonstration, and making a French dressing will give you all the answers. If you need to understand emulsion, nothing beats making a simple, basic French dressing. So what is the components? Usually we're going to have a little bit of salt. We're going to have, I'm using white pepper on here, okay? And then these two liquids that are immiscible, they're not soluble together, oil, and here, for instance, vinegar, because it contains lots of water. So for a dressing, typically, we're going to have about 3 tablespoons of oil. Okay, so I've got my oil on here. And we're going to follow by 1 tablespoon of vinegar and see what happens. A good tablespoon in here, and I'm going to put this in here. So, there we have it. What do you see on here? You can clearly see that the oil and the vinegar don't like to blend together. They kind of coexist, and you get a clear pond of vinegar and a clear side of oil. This is what we refer to as these liquids that are immiscible. They're not soluble together. And if you want these two to mix, you're going to have to do an action, which is emulsifying. If you don't do anything, they will never come together. But if you want to make a dressing, you're going to have to emulsify. Emulsifying is the action where you're going to take, for instance, a whisk. We're going to force everything together. We're going to create microscopic bubble and also introduce lots of air. So let's do it. I'm emulsifying. Okay, we got air. All the oil and vinegar is now broken into tiny microscopic pieces and bubbles and everything. And what do I've got here? I've got a new compound, an emulsified sauce. This is the ultra basic French dressing. But what if I stop whisking and I leave my bowl like this? Well, what's going to happen is that the oil and the vinegar are going to return to their natural state. The oil is going to separate, and the vinegar is also going to separate. This is why typically these dressings, or most of the dressings, are called an unstable emulsion. All right, that's great. So we've created a French dressing. It is an unstable emulsion, but what about if you want something a bit more stable, right? You want your dressing not to fall apart after a mere minutes and to be able to put it on the table so it stays that way. Now, if you want to have something more stable in your emulsion, you need to add another component, which is an emulsifier, such as the classic mustard. The components of mustard act as an emulsifier. It is basically a stabilizing agent that's going to help that vinegar and oil to stick together longer. Okay, so I've got my salt and pepper on here. I'm going to add my so-called emulsifier. Okay, I'm going to start here, for instance, with my vinegar. You know, the order is a little bit different, so I've got my spoon of vinegar. I'm going to start that mixing like we had before, and making a little potion, a little mixture. Look at this. Okay. So I've got all that stuff on here, and from here, if I basically now start to add oil and whisk, I'm going to have something that is going to be much thicker and create a bit of a paste-like consistency. You see? Let me take a spoon and show you. So let's have a look and compare the two. This is the dressing we've made to start with just the basic, and the emulsification with just the oil, the vinegar. You can see the color, and it's quite liquid. This is the mustard vinaigrette with the emulsifier, and what's happening, you get something much thicker. A kind almost like a mayonnaise-like consistency, and that mixture, because of the mustard, is going to stay that way for a much longer time than this one. And this is why a lot of time in preparation, in sauces, mayonnaise and other things, we use mustard or other elements to help that emulsification to become stable. That said, even though adding mustard in your dressing still is an unstable emulsion. If you leave this long enough for days, it will tend to separate again. If you want to have something absolutely stable and to make something that is called a stable emulsion, a stable sauce, for that you need eggs. So let's have a look at the mayonnaise. So when I've mentioned eggs, I should have said egg yolk, because the egg yolk is the one component responsible for the creation of stable emulsions, such as the mayonnaise sauce. A mayonnaise sauce and all its derivatives are labeled as stable emulsion. The lecithin content into the egg yolks really allows for the preparation to be totally stuck. It's like a glue, basically, and when you have your emulsion, it makes a solid mass and then it stays that way. So while the egg is great at really making that stable emulsion and solidifies everything, it is not a great emulsifier as such. It is a great glue factor, but to help the emulsion to happen quickly, it is not that good. This is why mustard is used a lot of time when you make a mayonnaise. It is good for the taste, but the trick is you add mustard with the egg yolk, because then you've got a really strong emulsifying mixture that you can use, and as soon as you put the oil, everything will start sticking together like mad. So here, I'm going to do the demonstration without using mustard, just to show you how the process works. So to make our second emulsified sauce, the cold sauce, which is the mayonnaise sauce, we have the same principle. So here we're using some salt and pepper for the seasoning, but keep in mind that the principle of an emulsion, you need to have the two components that are oil and water, or something that contains water. That is very, very important. Otherwise, nothing is going to happen. It's very obvious when you have a dressing, because oil and vinegar is lots of liquid, but here we only have the salt, the pepper. I'm going to have an egg yolk, and if I add the oil, you think, well, where is the water? Well, there's a little bit of water contained in the egg yolk here, but that is not much. So you need to add something, some element of water. You could add water in here, 1 or 2 teaspoons, but instead, I'm going to be using here vinegar. And for that person, because we don't have the mustard, so we need to really work. So I'm adding a little bit of vinegar in there with my egg yolk, and that is going to make my base mixture. Okay, so if you have a better view, the air bubbles, it's kind of nice and foamy, but remember, we don't have mustard, and the egg yolk is very weak for the emulsification. So we're going to want to add oil a little bit at a time on here with this type of mayonnaise. So I've got that creamy mixture already, but you see the process without the mustard is very slow. So it's doable. The traditional mayonnaise without mustard, which is the original, can be made. It is just a little bit slower, but you need to be aware of the steps. Okay, so I'm going to keep on going and show you the result at the end. So there we have it. The mayonnaise is done, it's ready, it's nice and creamy, and hopefully by now you got a better understanding of that emulsification plus the series of emulsified sauces. We're starting with the basic emulsion with no emulsifier, the French dressing that starts to disassociate. You always need to beat it and to recreate the emulsion that is temporary, it is short-lived. If you add mustard, which is an emulsifier, you help the dressing to become a little bit creamier and avoid splitting too fast, but it is still unstable. And when you use egg yolks and you create a sauce like a mayonnaise, respecting of course the principles of having enough water, enough oil, you get a sauce that is now solid, and this is called a stable emulsified sauces, which is the mayonnaise. This is the key principles, but there's still an exception, of course, and that is the product made with garlic. So to finish, let's talk about the exception, which is the preparation based on garlic. So it is like a mayonnaise sauce, such as the aioli, which is a preparation where lots of garlic bulbs are crushed with salt, and we mix oil through to create an emulsification, but also have something stable. So garlic has got that power to emulsify, and it also has all this fiber and viscosity and some component that actually can create a mayonnaise looking sauce that is stable without the use of eggs. And the Lebanese way of making that garlic sauce is called toum. In Arabic, toum means garlic, by the way. Is done with a food processor in the modern world. And I've tried that version and I was really amazed to see that the food processor with a neutral oil and plenty of garlic create like a very airy emulsification, almost like a mousse. This is why I like to call this the garlic mousse. It's very easy, very simple, very fast, and it is super versatile. This is why I want to finish with this. It's going to be the star of the show for this video. Let's go. Now, if you want to make that garlic mousse very simple, you're going to need some garlic, some neutral oil, salt, pepper, a bit of lemon juice. The garlic, I'm using this large garlic clove, and that can be Mexican garlic, Russian garlic. There's this very large clove compared to the small ones we have in France and Italy. I think the European one's a bit too strong for my taste for this kind of sauce. Otherwise, it's really too pungent because, as you can see, there's a lot of garlic. For the process, you're going to need a food processor. This is paramount. Let's do it. As I said, food processor, you want to have a small food processor. You don't want to use an immersion blender, a stick blender, whatever. You need a food processor that works best. We're going to have the garlic in here, just with the salt to start with, and we're going to process this into a paste. And let's go. After a minute, we're going to start to slowly incorporate some oil and really let that emulsification process happen. So you can see that on the corner. You can see it mixes the oil with the garlic. You don't want to go too fast, okay? So little bit by little bit. Let's have a look. I've added roughly what? About a tablespoon. You see that white mixture that I've got? It starts to be moussey already. We're on the way. So you keep on going until you got about half the oil, so that you check the consistency and you keep on processing oil bit by bit. When we're halfway through, we'll stop. Do you see that mixture? Still very moussey, very nice. I'm going to take my lemon juice and I'm going to start to add a bit of it. Usually it's a juice of one lemon, but I'm going to be easy with the lemon. So don't go overboard when you add stuff, bit by bit, and then we process it. Now for the last step, once you've mixed for about 40 seconds with the lemon, you check the consistency, you still have a mousse, perfect. What you're gonna do from the top, from the feeder of the food processor, you're gonna slowly add the rest of the lemon. So the oil from the top, so imagine you got a bit of oil extra, I've got a bit of lemon juice extra, and you taste, you make sure it's not too pungent, and that's about it, and you keep on processing until it's done. Up, let's go. You see the consistency, look at that. You can see that mousse? And I can add now, if I want, some pepper. It's optional. I like to add a little bit of white pepper in there. You can add more lemon. You could add some herbs if you want, anything you want. You got the base, you got your garlic mousse, and we're ready. I'm going to do a final process and put this into a bowl. And this is how the final product looks like. The garlic mousse, super versatile. You can use it as a dip, as a sauce, as a stir-fry, and it will keep in your fridge in an airtight container for a week or more. Now, if you have any question regarding emulsified sauces, use the comment section. And for the one of you that want to learn more about the intricacy of sauce making, check our course, link in the video description. We cover all the theory, the basic techniques, the stock making, and 30 classic French sauces. As for me, I will see you next week with another cooking video. We're resuming the recipe, so I hope to see you then. Take care all. Bye bye.